What do you want to talk about today, Ayinde?
Is this a big one or controversial one? Consistency is overrated. Maybe the way I say it makes it sound like a big issue, but a little provocative, but that's something I've been thinking about. And we can dig into that. What did you want to talk about?
Consistency is overrated. When you say consistency is overrated, you mean in terms of marketing or content?
Specifically as it pertains to posting content.
Oh, okay. I hear that. What did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about types of creators I've observed and which type might you be. People have different ways and methods that they create content, and I've put those into 3 categories, and I want to discuss what those are and the features of someone and how they might maximize the way they create content.
Well, that sounds interesting. If you could identify the type of creator you are, it makes it easier to lead into that and therefore hopefully make you a little bit more productive. So who's going to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. As we know, there are many things that can influence a content strategy. When people start to make content, normally what happens is that they go through a process of discovering what they have to create, how they want to create it, what they like, what they don't like. And there are many different factors. But one of the things people never consider is the type of creator you might be. So after you select the type of content you want to make, and if you land on video as a main content type, there are ways that you can be most efficient when creating video content. And based on my observations, dealing with people, the projects we've done over the years, generally there are 3 main methods as to how you can create video content. And basically, as a result, there are 3 different types of creators. At the end, I'll have some caveats, but there are 3 main types of creators. So when you know who you are, then you will find the most efficient way that works for you. These 3 different types of creators, I've categorized them by letters, and the letters represent the name. So there is S-type, there is B-type, and there is C-type of creators. So S-type, B-type, and C-type of creators. And everyone lands in a particular category, and I want to jump into each of those right now.
Everyone land, or everyone definitely lands in one of those?
Everyone definitely lands in one of those, but there are caveats to that. So everyone definitely lands in one.
And without me knowing, because the first time I'm hearing of this, or maybe I don't know, maybe I heard about it before, but I'm not recalling anything. So with me totally in the dark, is it possible to be in more than one category?
Yeah, absolutely. I've never met someone who has not been in more than one category.
Okay.
But at the same time, normally people have an emphasis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're most efficient in one way most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at the first type of content creator, or video content creator specifically. And maybe this would apply to other types of content too, maybe writing, graphics, and all those different things. So the first type of content creator that you might be is the spontaneous creator. The spontaneous creator. And this is someone who can create video content without any major planning or script. You can create most times content multiple times a week, and you post soon after you create, often on the same day. And you create when you feel inspired or you encounter something that is worth talking about. So that's the type of way that you lean into content creation. So most times it's off the cuff, or it might be an idea that's in your head and you don't have a lot of planning. You haven't written anything out, or maybe you might jot down a quick note. But most of the times you are creating with ideas that are in your head, and you might this person will just pull out their phone and they will do something while they are in the middle of something else. And that's how they tend to create.
Kind of like a vlogger.
Kind of like a vlogger, but not always in a vlogging style or format.
Right.
So a creator like this, their strength would be they're great without preparation, and they're very confident in front of the camera, because to create something spontaneously, you have to be confident in front of the camera. And their weakness might be inconsistency or lack of focus. Because you're doing it spontaneously, maybe you're not staying on one type of topic, or you don't have one content pillar. And maybe you only do it when something turns up or when you are at an event or when you are feeling inspired. And that could end up making you inconsistent.
Right.
So that's some of the dangers of being that type of creator. So let me talk a little bit about some content that will work for that type of creator or that person. So that type of person will mainly create like short form video content, maybe 30 to 90 seconds. They will thrive in things like behind the scenes content. And maybe a lot of their content will lean into entertainment or edutainment. And they usually create with minimal editing and is usually edited internally, or they will edit on the fly. They will edit it themselves. So they take responsibility for the full supply chain in terms of creation. So they record, they edit, they post, they do everything themselves, basically.
What platforms would you say they will excel on? Like, what platforms are best for those kinds of creators?
Yeah, so any platform that has an emphasis on short form content, and this is notwithstanding what their business emphasis is or their customers are. This is not talking about that part of it, because that would be another big determinant. But if you are somebody who will post on a place like TikTok or maybe Instagram, and to some degree YouTube Shorts, that will really, really help. In the Caribbean, I have a whole, not theory, I have data to support this. In the Caribbean, obviously, we know that there are some platforms that do better than others. And so we have messaging platforms like WhatsApp, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have TikTok, and then we have YouTube. If they have like a WhatsApp group, it will work well for that. If they have a TikTok account, it will work well for that. Instagram, any short form content platform that people like to see this type of in real life, engaging behind the scenes type of content, they will do really, really well with that. Yeah. Sometimes if they get a topic that they're passionate about, they could probably cross the 2-minute mark. But generally, you'll find that whatever they create will be under 5 minutes, usually 30 to 90 seconds. Right. That's how they will thrive. And finally, I'll talk about the pros and cons. The pros of being a spontaneous creator is that you always have fresh content, which is new topics, locations, events, and you keep up with current events. And often you develop a kind of a style. People know you for your personality when you're creating spontaneously. Right. The cons of it is that you are always working on content or you are never working on content. There's kind of no in between. You're always doing stuff or you're never doing stuff. And it's all you. You're responsible for everything, which is not always ideal, because if you can't do it, then it wouldn't happen. And lastly, a danger of being like that is that you could burn out. Now, burnout is something that is real for anybody who's making content. But for that type of person, they could really burn out because they're doing everything. So that's a danger.
So you have S, that's spontaneous. Mm-hmm. The other one is B?
Yeah. The other one is B. I do have a section that talks about things to consider. I'm not sure if we'll have time to deal with that, but I'll skip that one. I'll probably put that in the section that's, if we have time, I'll circle back. If we have time, I'll talk about that again at the end. But there are some things to consider when you are a spontaneous creator, which I'll probably put in the article that we release on the blog, on the It's Good to Relate podcast website. I'll put it inside there so people see the considerations of those people. But the second type, which is the B type, is the batch creator. Now, this just describes what it is, and you would be familiar with this type of creator, the batch creator. Yeah. So this is very popular. So this type of creator they would take one block of time, maybe 2 or 3 hours per month, and they'll create all of their content. Sometimes you can do it twice a month, and they will create all their content for the next content cycle at once. And they will do multiple videos in one session. So their creator strength is that they are clear and they're prepared, and their creator weakness is probably that they're predictable and probably a little boring for some people, because they're going to be doing things in a set way all the time, depending.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, that this is very suitable to people who run businesses. Mm-hmm. And so they have other jobs to do, especially if you have a small business, a micro enterprise. You're doing everything, chief cook, bottle washer, etc., etc. So when you add social media, or you add content creation, or you add digital marketing on top of that, these people will want to leave time for their other jobs.
Yeah.
And batching is, I feel like batching is going to help those kinds of people. Because it's hard doing both jobs, but you have to. I mean, when you have a small business, it's hard to hire somebody just to do content creation. And so you find yourself as a CEO doing it, or you find yourself as a general manager doing it, or even the marketing manager doing it, but you have all the other marketing stuff to do apart from content creation. So having that time, you say, okay, at the beginning of the quarter, you're going to shoot all the videos, do a batch. Those batches could be as small as, and I'm just thinking out loud, it could be as small as, let's do 2 videos at a time, and as much as 15 videos at a time, and you either cover the half year or you cover the quarter. But it just occurred to me that that's a good strategy or technique for people who have a lot of other work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're in a company and your company is growing, you are somebody who started off as a solopreneur by yourself, and your company begins to grow, you hire people. You can't really be spontaneous as you were before, because you're managing things. You're probably looking to be out there. You are maybe the main salesperson. That might be the case. But as your business grows, you'll have to find more structure in how you create content. You cannot be as spontaneous as you were before. Some people do it still, but it makes sense that you would find a structure to produce this content, unless the content is specifically a certain type of content that cannot be done like that. Like, for example, if you're at an event or you're doing behind the scenes, which is why when we were offline before, I talked about this is not exclusive types. Everyone is a mix. So let me talk about the content that works for someone who is a batch creator. So this person will do short to medium form video, 90 seconds to 15 minutes. Sometimes they'll do YouTube style content, and they mostly produce educational and or inspirational content. And they could record 3 to 10 pieces per hour, depending on how they plan it out. The pros of this is that you save time. You save time because you do it once per month, twice per month, and then you don't have to do it again. And because of that, your stress is reduced. You have time to do more things because everything is planned ahead of time. And then you could probably get better production value because you're planned ahead. Maybe you have a teleprompter. Maybe you go to a studio. And the content that you produce in a context like that may be seasonal, but also could be evergreen content depending on what you want to create that time. The cons of being that type of creator is that you have minimal flexibility. The topics are set, and additional production costs may happen. You may incur additional production costs because you may have to hire externally to help create with this batching of content if you're not one to do it by yourself. But you could do it by yourself, right? So that is a B-type creator. Again, I have a section that is called Things to Consider, but I will put that on the blog, in the article that accompanies this particular blog post.
Sure.
On the website at itsgoodtoradio.com. I'll put that Things to Consider for B-type creators in that section. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, batch production seems like it'll be suited to a lot of people. But I do get where you're kind of rigid. One of the things I would point out, though, is if you've decided I am a batch producer, that's my content creation type. I like to do batch. It's easier for me. It's better to manage. We touched on it at the beginning, being in both camps or both groups at the same time. One of the things I think people should kind of convince themselves of is you're not locked into a content creation type. Yeah. So even though you have all your batches produced, you should have some flexibility in your schedule that if something needed to be addressed or something happened or you need to create or you had a particularly good idea and you need to create particular content from that, there should be some mechanism in your workflow that allows you to interject a piece of content, so to speak, that allows us to still say, okay, today is not a scheduled shooting day, but I can still do this because I have either flexibility with how I approach it or flexibility with the gear or the company I use to help me create content is willing to come out of schedule. So just have some flexibilities so that there are opportunities to kind of take advantage of things that might arise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the one running theme that we'll find in this part is that nobody is one thing. Everybody's a combination, even though there's an emphasis. So that is so true. Even though you're batching or you're somebody who likes to batch content, you may want to be spontaneous sometimes. Or let's get on to the third one now. You may want to do this. The third type of creator is a C-type creator, which is what I call a core creator. And from hearing that name, what do you think it might be, Ayinde?
That creating content is their job.
No, that's a good definition, but that's not what it is. This person actually, their method is to create a long form video, and then they take clips from that in order to use across all of the platforms to schedule their content. Yeah.
So in any given period, they will have one core piece of content that then allows for multiple pieces of content on different platforms and so on. Okay. Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. It's a different way to batching. Batching is taking that block of time and creating smaller pieces of content, multiple of those. This one is just like how we're recording this podcast now. When we're done, we're going to take this podcast and then we're going to pull clips from it. So this would be a method, a way of having a core piece of content that you make, and then you pull clips. So this is called a core creator way or method. I was trying to find a good name for it. I didn't want to call him a clip creator. That sounds kind of weird. So I went with core creator. Maybe we could workshop that particular name. But you understand the method that they're using. They have a big piece of content and they're going to pull clips from that, parts from that, and they're going to distribute that all across their content platforms where their audience is. Yeah.
And that main clip would usually live on their core platform. So I guess it makes sense whether it's YouTube or if it's a podcast, it would live on a particular platform and then be repurposed for other platforms.
Correct. And like in a case like us, what we're doing right now is actually we're live, right? Mm-hmm. We're live. Now, sometimes this person doesn't have to be live. They could do it offline and then post it to YouTube and then promote it using those clips. But they could even do what we're doing now. They could go live and create the content live, prepare ahead of time, and then take that and then use it. In fact, the software that we're using right now, StreamYard, they generate the clips for you. So when we're done here, we just have to click one button and it'll generate 10 different short form clips. 9 of them are never good.
Well, I was about to say, I see a lot of clips online and I know when they're AI generated because the clips make no sense. It's like, it's literally a clip. It's like, there's no pointed, there's no call to action, there's no direction. It's just like a statement and then the clip ends. So
that's one of the dangers of being a co-creator, that sometimes you have to plan it in such a way so that you could get clips from it. Right. You could get clips from it, because sometimes you just have a conversation or you just have an interview or you just come and you do a solo podcast or whatever it might be. And you don't really have the interesting things that you can pull out, and as much as helpful as AI is, I don't think AI is very good at pulling out those clips and making them exactly the way, at least what I would want out of it on its first try. Yeah.
Like with most content creation, AI is always a good start. But to really dial things into your strategy, you will probably need to get some kind of human involved. Because, like, for example, do you want your clips to promote your long form, or do you want your clips to deliver value in and of themselves? So I can use a clip like a teaser. It actually doesn't give me anything. It only entices me to dig further.
Right.
Or I could say, okay, I want these to be standalone pieces of value that could then go out to my audience. And I'm not sure if an AI is going to be able to figure that out easily, especially for your particular core audience. But yeah, so I'm thinking you have to think about strategies like that. How am I going to use the distributed clips? How am I going to use a tweet, for example? What's it called?
Tweet or post. Yeah, it's called a post.
So how am I going to use a story or a reel? Is it going to stand alone as its own piece of content that's going to deliver value, in which case it has to have clear value in that clip? Or is it just going to be promotional, like a teaser or trailer or something to entice me to come and dig further? That's one of the issues I kind of identify with some people who do that a lot. Mm-hmm. When I look at the clip, I sometimes want to figure out more. and it's not
Right.
always clear where the longer version is. Just this week, I was looking
Right.
at a clip with an interview, and the clip was kind of, I don't want to use the word useless, but it started to
Well,
tell you something, but it didn't tell you. So I said, okay, fine, I'll play the game. Let me go to the full length version of this interview. So I go to the YouTube channel, and there's no full length version of the interview. And I was, no, unless something is really interesting, you ain't digging much further than that. That's about as far as you're going to go. So I found that was a little weird. Why would you have clips only on this particular channel? I'm not going to go through each clip to try to get the whole interview. That's too much work. What it should do is send me to very clearly and easily, like in the caption or the first comment, it should very clearly send me to the long form version if I wanted to consume the long form version of the thing. But this particular creator, I'm not going to call names, they just had a channel of shorts,
right. Right.
which I thought was kind of weird.
Was that the original creator though? Because if there's somebody who's putting all this energy into long form, they generally wouldn't have a channel of shorts. Maybe that's somebody else who's just pulling their content.
That's a good point. Maybe there's a lot of that happening.
Yeah, but that's a really good point you raise. But I would say the value is the promotion. That's what I would take from it. You have to create something that is valuable in order to get people interested. So I would combine the two. I would never separate those two. I would say the value is the promotion.
Right.
That it has to be some compelling, some punchy thing that is said that is going to lead people back to this long form thing. And the more you promote it, obviously, the more people will get accustomed to the fact that they have to go back to the core piece of content, the big piece of content, whether that is a live show, podcast, or whatever, to get all of the value that is being delivered. And you only get a window of it in this short clip, in this 30-second, 90-second clip of the long form piece of content. So yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
I was just wondering, a thought came to mind about relationship building and short clips. How much of an impact, positive or negative, do you think those have on brands building relationships with their target audience? Is it better or neutral, or is it worse? I was just having that thought. I don't have a clear opinion on it just yet. I am just kind of thinking over and wondering, is the short form detrimental to relationship? Because a lot of times you consume short form, it is in a feed. So the next clip is not related to that at all. It's some other creator. As opposed to somebody who is, okay, I'm going to this channel to look at this guy's videos.
Right.
I'm not sure what your thoughts are on like short form as a promotion for a longer piece, how that impacts relationship. Is it good? Is it not good?
Well, first of all, I think one of the points of this type of way that you create is to get the short form. So you have to do it. I mean, because the big piece of content, unless it's already established, has to be promoted. So the short form clips are an ad for the big piece of content. It depends on what type of product you sell, the type of service you offer, and what your goals are. And I'm not sure short form always damages. In fact, some people thrive in a certain type of relationship with short form. And that's why I'm saying, like, you see people who create content for fast moving consumer goods, they will always win with short form because you can do a lot of stuff with that. But anything that has a longer sales cycle, anything that is higher ticket, you may want to consider how you build that relationship. And so, like, just being remembered as a particular brand is often enough to encourage people to make a buying decision. Just remembering that, because when you think about fried chicken, you think about a certain thing. When you think about soft drink, you think about a certain brand. When you think about laundry detergent, brands pop in your head immediately. And so it's the same for things like ice cream. It's the same for shoes. Everything I've just called just now, something has popped in your head. Something has popped in the people who are online right now watching. A brand has popped in their head. I'm just saying names of things. And depending on the type of relationship you want with your customers, you can engineer that. And short form could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. But I would say for certain types of businesses, if they don't do it right, it could damage the relationship with your clients. I would say that is to be seen. Obviously, that is something that you need to figure out for yourself.
Right. So you're saying it can be very good in terms of building your brand so that you have that. So that thing that you're talking about in terms of, say, a particular category and you trigger a brand in your mind, you're saying short form video is good for developing that kind of brand real estate and that kind of brand equity.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I 100%. I believe that is the case, especially if you, because I mean, you could feature the product in different ways. And people have done studies on this where a song really only gets popular when people start to listen to it. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's only weird because the more we hear something, the more we like, oh, this is not so bad. This is a nice song. It's very few songs that you would hear and you immediately say, ah, this is so good. Lots of songs that people release have to get built up. And so if somebody on TikTok grabs a piece of that song and makes it a viral video, you hear it so much now, you end up liking the song. Right. And that's what happens a lot of times. So it's like brand real estate is being built in your mind the more often you hear it.
Two soca artists came to mind, and I'm going to say who they are. When you say if you play it enough, people start to like it.
It's a fact.
Two very clear, distinct soca artists come to mind. I am not going to say who they are. I'm sure the same people came to your mind too.
Yeah, I'm sure, because again, Brandon. So the people who are watching now, the more people hear about you, the more they're going to remember you. That's just the fact of the matter. The more you hear something, the more you accept it. That is a psychological principle outside of marketing. That's a life principle. The more people repeat your name, the more they're going to remember you. And depending on the context, they're going to like you or not. Right? That's part of why I had to make content in the first place. All right, lastly, this section is taking really long. Lastly, let me just say what content will work for this type of creator, this core creator. So obviously a video podcast will work. You could do that solo, you could do interview, you could do co-hosted like we're doing right now. You could do a live show or a scripted long form video, like a YouTube video that is longer, like 30 minutes to 2 hours for somebody who's a core creator. And the pros of being someone who makes a core piece of content and then pulls out clips is that it is authority and trust building. And so we get back to what you were getting on. And you can get a high volume of content depending on how you do the clips. The cons are, and of course that will make you consistent and you have wider distribution potential if you create a core piece of content. The cons of being a core creator is that it takes much more planning. It takes much more planning to be a core creator. You have to be very strategic about how you approach making your content in terms of structuring it, in terms of even a show like this, we have to plan ahead of time. We have to have software. We have to have setups. It's not an easy thing to do. But in addition to that, if you are doing like an interview podcast, you have to have systems like outreach systems to book people. Content is always looking the same because we'll basically look the same. You have additional production costs and you may have to hire externally. And of course, there's a need for promotion inside of that. So being someone who creates content from a large piece of content and then has to pull clips or repurpose it into smaller clips, those are the challenges you would face. There are things to consider. I'll put those in the blog post at its.8.com when we post this particular video. Yeah. All right. I have some massive caveats as well. I will not include those. I'll put that in the blog post too. So let's jump into what you wanted to talk about.
Let's just get one caveat.
The main caveat about this whole thing is that no one is ever one type, right? And no one type is better than the other. You'll find that you are a combination of all three with an emphasis on one. And we mentioned that earlier. So no type is better than the other. The thing that you have to consider is, what does my business need? And we talked about that last week. What does my business need? What kind of content do I like making? What am I good at making? And all those different things are things you have to consider. So last week's episode will dock into this episode and will give you a sense of how you want to choose the type of creator you need to be. Yeah.
The word that keeps coming to mind is efficiency. Because if you're creating content for your business as opposed to because they like to create content, you need to achieve a certain level of efficiency so that you get a good return on investment. Because if you take in 6 months to write an episode, it's not as efficient. And so what I'm hearing you saying is you have to choose the main type of content creation, the main content creation type for you that allows you to be as efficient as possible.
Absolutely.
Some people will be more efficient being spontaneous. Some people are more efficient doing batch, and some people will be more efficient having core content that they could then redistribute. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Good. That's the longest section we've ever done. Let's move on to what you want to talk about now.
Yeah, consistency is interesting. So you've used one piece of corporate jargon for the morning. So that's your one allotment. You're not allowed to use anymore. So we circled back sometime earlier in this episode. We circled back. Now I'm going to talk about synergy. So that's my allotment. There always seems to be some kind of synergy between what you talk about and what I talk about, or what we bring to the stage for discussion. I know Juma mentioned it in a previous episode, but I'm not sure if everybody's clear. We are never actually aware of what the discussion points of the other person is going to be. So it's a really spontaneous discussion. However, I am pointing out that there always seems to be some kind of synergy between what we talk about. And so you were talking about content creation, which delves into how can we be more efficient and more consistent. And a lot of content creation gurus will tell you consistency is key. In fact, when you talk about content creation, two main things come to mind, which is context, which is the environment in which you operate in. That includes your brand, your customer, and the wider environment. So context is important. And the other one is consistency, how often you post. And the tendency is to think that higher frequency is more desirable. And that's what you want. You want to have consistency, and you want to have a higher frequency. In fact, Gary Vee, I might be misquoting him, but I think at one point he was advocating, this is back when there was Twitter, posting multiple times per day as standard for content creators. And my question is, and my thought is that level of consistency overrated? So somebody will tell you. So there's a quote, and I'm not sure who I'm going to attribute it to, that if you post 3 times a week, every week, never miss, be consistent. And I'm asking the question is, what if we're wrong? What if that is not necessarily the best approach? Because what it does is that it kind of sets up a false idol. And sorry to use biblical language, but that's just the thought that came to mind. In that we start pursuing the consistency and we forget the real intent of content creation. So consistency could never be the goal. The goal is relationship. Yeah. So just some figures, because figures are good. I like little research and numbers and so on. So 55% of marketers report content fatigue among their own teams. And so they're getting tired trying to keep up with the content schedule. Yeah. However, juxtapose that, and 51% of campaigns feel generic to audiences receiving them. So here you have your content creation team dying to keep consistency and the audience not even being interested. Yeah. Another quotation says 45% of consistent content creation teams fail to deliver consistent consumer experiences across touch points, even when they post consistently. So what that is we're prioritizing consistency, but we're not prioritizing the relationship. So the experience varies too much because we're trying to hit the numbers. We're trying to get, this piece of content has to go out this. And what happens is that the experience gets affected. And if the experience is affected, then the relationship is impacted. Yeah. So we're burning out our teams producing content that the audience either is not interested in or they find it forgettable. Yeah. So you have you have a lot of, so you're actually losing twice because you're producing content that has no impact, but you're also impacting your long-term relationship with your target audience by producing content that has no clear benefits to the experience.
I find the prospect of doing what Gary Vee proposed is absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying on many levels, like having to create multiple pieces of content a day. Now, I did experiment once during the pandemic times when you had a little more time on your hands of creating a post a day on TikTok. There's no way I could do that right now. I simply can't, and I'm not going to. But also, I would say that you brought up a really interesting point. You spoke about affecting the relationship by putting out non-relevant, probably generic content. That it's not as special as it could be. Now, I'm not going to say the name of the book because it's kind of controversial, depending on who you are. But Louis Grenier, who wrote this book, I'll just say STFO, right? I'll just put it that way. It's a really, really great book, and it talks about. You're going to say something?
No. I just realized what book it is.
Yeah, it's Louis Grenier, STFO. Let's put it that way. And part of the premise of that book is a positioning book. It's like, how are you going to make yourself different? And the problem that people have, a lot of companies have, is that they're just looking on the left and on the right, and they're doing the same generic thing that their competitors is doing. That's what they're doing. They're doing the same generic thing. They're not thinking about how am I positioning myself in the market and how can I make content that works for me and that really reaches out to the specific, I like to call it the exact customer that I want to get. And marketing teams are under pressure. They have to produce something and they don't know what to do because they're looking at X company and those persons are being successful. You don't have no idea what their KPIs are. You have no idea what they're trying to accomplish, but you're going to copy them. It doesn't make any sense. So I agree with you in the sense that there's a high chance that you're going to be generic if you're thinking about just putting out content. Despite Gary Vee's volume, he was actually pretty unique in the way he did things. So
right. Yeah. So if you kind of focus too much on, I have to hit these numbers, I have to be consistent, and as opposed to being distinctive, memorable, impacting relationship, then you can put out content that's detrimental. So the question, just a couple more figures to just kind of inform some of what we're talking about. So what does the figures say, like the research say with regards to what actually drives engagement? And we want to kind of attach engagement into relationship building. If you have good quality engagement, the assumption should be that you can have better long-term relationships, which is what you want. So 47% of marketers say knowing your audience is a top factor in content creation. So understanding who you're talking to is more important than just talking a lot.
Yeah.
And focusing on that core audience and talking to them. So it's like if you're building a relationship with a person, you're building a relationship with a friend, you're a young unmarried guy, you're tracking, as we say in Trinidad and Tobago, or you're pursuing, or you're courting. It's more important for you to identify who that young lady is and talk to her, even if it's not every day, but have meaningful discussions with her than trying to talk to all the ladies in the room at the same time and thinking, I'm just talking, so I must get through because I'm talking. Talking you got to be talking to the right person. You got to be saying the right things. The other statistic I was looking at, 46% of consumers say they open emails from a brand because the message is consistency relevant. Yeah. So relevance is what earns the open of the emails, and also allows them to share it. So those two things I would say kind of actually impact more than just talking a lot or just saying things, being consistent in terms of posting. I want to bring up an example. So I look at a fair bit of YouTube. I kind of mentioned Casey Neistat in a previous episode. So I'm not going to use Casey Neistat, although he's a good example for understanding consistency and the impact of consistency. But his example is the antithesis of this other guy I look at a lot on YouTube. Now, a lot is relative because he does not post very often. Now, the channel is called DIY Perks. I believe the guy is in the UK. So DIY Perks is very interesting in that he has 4.9 million subscribers. Yeah. Now look at any other YouTuber who has that number of subscribers and compare the number of videos that they have out. He only has 121 videos on his channel. And I say only because I think he's been posting, I don't have the date, but he's been posting a good few years. Now, the thing about his videos is that they may come out maybe 3 to 4 month, not week, 3 to 4 month in intervals. So if you look at his most recent videos a month ago, then 6 months ago, so that's a 6-month gap. Then 3 months ago, 3-month gap. 9 months ago, which leaves you with a 3-month gap. And that has been his level of consistency, or lack thereof, I could say. However, all of his videos have insane numbers. Like, people just wait for whenever he drops his videos. Now, what is the thing that he's doing that makes people watch his videos? As soon as he drops, people are like, boom, hey, DIY Perks, we had to look at this video. The thing is the quality of the videos, and quality not just from production value, although he has some good production value, he has some good storytelling, he has some good relevance, but his content is just very, very, very engaging and high quality. And so, regardless of his consistency or lack thereof, people will consume his content and have been consuming his content. So, by all measurements, this is a very successful YouTube channel. But he doesn't post every day. I'm not too sure if he's active on shorts. I think he started doing stuff, probably started doing some AI stuff, but definitely not short specific type stuff. So his consistency by all measures would be inconsistent. But he still has been able to engage with his audience. I think if he posts a video now, within hours, he'll be over 100,000 views. Within hours, over 100,000, easy. Yeah. Right. And so I'm just looking at him, DIY Perks. I can't remember his real name. Matt. I'm just looking at Matt as a good example of, if you talk to the right audience, you say the right things, high quality content, and you're relevant to that particular audience, the consistency kind of takes a backseat, and your audience will forgive you, especially if you have a direct connection with the audience. And I think it works particularly well for long format or medium format content, because people will search you out. People will actually subscribe and search you out, as opposed to you relying on the algorithm to put you on somebody's feed with a short or put you on somebody's feed with a reel, which goes back to last week's thing, which is avoid the algorithm. One of the ways you avoid the algorithm is to build relationship. So Matt has good relationship because there's a certain level of expectation from his audience, and he meets that expectation. So they're okay with waiting 3 months for a video, so long as he continues to meet those expectations. As opposed to if he had tried to, let me do a video every week, but then you fall off in terms of meeting the expectations of the target audience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I would add to this mix, you like DIY Perks. I like Mark Rober. Mark Rober makes one.
I heard of him this week. That's the NASA guy, right?
Yeah, you only heard of him this week?
Yeah. Actually, you might have mentioned him in the past, but I was reading an article about him this week.
Right. Yeah, I may have mentioned him. He has some really, the reason I know, because it's kid-friendly videos and it's all about engineering, which I like the children to watch sometimes. He releases one video a month, so 12 videos a year.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, and but he has a massive, for like 10 million or something like that on YouTube or whatever it is, but only releases 12 videos a year. But the video like DIY Perks is high quality, highly targeted, and very much a style that people love. So he does really, really well with that. So relevance, I think, plus the other thing you said, which I can't remember now, is very, very important.
What I find is that the channels that prioritize entertaining education, they do this best. Yeah, if your content delivers value on multiple levels, like you're entertained, like you could actually just sit down and watch it as something you would consume, but at
Edutainment.
the same time it's teaching you something, or at least pretending to teach you something. Because I actually started off watching DIY perks with the intent to do some of his projects.
Yeah, that was the light thing, right? The light panel thing.
Correct.
That you showed me, right?
I was like, I'm going to do some of his projects. I saw one. Actually, I kind of implemented part of his project, one of his projects, where I took a lens that is usually in a television and used that to create a diffuser. So I think my diffuser right here, this diffuser right here, is the inside of a LCD panel. Now, I learned that by watching DIY perks. But eventually his project started going way outside of my reach. It's like, okay, that has some electrical and some engineering and some material science. And it's like, okay, this is just good to watch. I will pretend that at some point in time I'm going to do this project, but right now I'm just being entertained by the entire process.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those kinds of channels do this best, because you have to deliver value on multiple levels for people to come and sit down and watch a 15-minute video or to watch a 20-minute video.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. So you said, so edutainment, excellent genre to be in if you could pull it off and you could do it right. So they have a couple of things that are happening with their content. So it's edutainment. Obviously, you're learning something in an entertaining way. The production value is very high, right? The depth, a lot of depth inside of what they're doing. Yep. He delivers how-tos. You're being taught how to solve a problem. So he's problem solving as well. It's a combination of things that is causing his content to really be appealing to someone like me or someone like you. So he knows his target market very, very well.
You're very good. So what should replace consistency as our North Star? So if we are saying consistency is not the main thing, it's not the objective, it's not the goal. It's a discipline, but it's not the goal. So then I would say ask yourself 3 questions just to wrap up. So is the content you're going to post relevant? Particularly, is it relevant right now? So is it relevant inside of the prevailing context for your business and for your audience? Yeah. So does it connect to something that the audience is going to be paying attention to now, or something that is important to the audience? The other question I would ask is it on brand? Does this feel like us? Does this piece of content feel like DIY Puts, for example? Or Mark Robert, for example. So is it on brand, and does it feel like, or does it feel generic? If the piece of content feels generic, go back to the drawing board, skip this week, come back next week instead. Maybe even tell people, hey, things weren't working out this week and you're not going to get a video. Next video is next week. I think people will appreciate that level of realness, and they will also realize, oh, it's not AI making the videos because the guy literally couldn't do it for some whatever reason. And the third question is, does this content deepen the relationship, or is it just slotting in Wednesday at 5 p.m. You have your content calendar and we just had to push stuff. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what happens is that if you're just filling a slot, that content becomes noise. So you become part of the din in the background. And you don't want to be part of the din in the background. You want to be able to stand out. And I guarantee you that happens with everybody's timeline who follows DIY Perks. When that thumbnail comes up, it's like that thing stands out. It's like you see your girlfriend in a crowd, or you see your wife coming up the street. It's going to stand out. It have a bunch of people around, but that's your wife. So you lock in on who that person is. So does this content deepen the relationship, or is it just going to end up being noise? Yeah. So the last thing I would leave people with in terms of this consideration, just considering this topic, is consistency is a discipline that you do want to have, but it's not the goal. Relationship ultimately has to be the goal.
That's good stuff. That's really, really good stuff. All right. This is our longest podcast so far since the very first one a few years ago. So let's close it up. What did we learn today, Ayinde? We learned a lot. We covered a lot today. What did we learn today?
when it comes to content, consistency is a good strategy to implement. It's good to have. It's good to be consistent. However, don't let consistency become your ultimate objective, because consistency is not an objective. It is a way to achieve your objective. And ultimately, that objective has to be better, longer term relationships with your target audience through the content. So if you had to be less consistent in order to be more relevant, I would take that route.
On my side, I would say that one of the main things that we learn is that there are different types of creators and there are different ways you can make video content, and you have to learn what works for you. You have to learn if you need to be spontaneous, if you need to batch, or if you need to have a large piece of content at the core and then make clips out of that. And the thing is that usually, even though you have an emphasis, you're never really only one. And you have to figure those things out. And when you figure those things out, the whole point of this thing is that you'll become more efficient. You'll be able to do the thing that you need to do in less time. And so you have more time to spend and focus on the things that really matter to your business. So that's one of the big takeaways from the first section. All right, that's it. So thanks everyone for joining us on It's Good to Relate. You can go and check out all of the episodes at itsgoodtorelate.com. And some of the things that we left out in the first section and maybe even the second section, we'll include it inside of the post, the article that goes along, or the podcast summary that goes along with this particular podcast post very, very soon.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you all next week.